Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and welcome to the Laurel, Maryland City Small Area Visioning Session. We appreciate very much the fact that you chose to spend time with us this evening. My name is Phil Hager and I have the opportunity and the honor to serve as your Planning and Zoning Officer. We have a number of special folks with us this evening, but none more special than yourselves, because you are the folks who make it all worthwhile, and it's for you that we do these processes. I would like to begin by introducing three members of our Citizens Advisory Committee. They are going to be providing advice to us and representing you for the next 12 months as we continue to develop this general development plan. The chair, Elizabeth Rosberg, Pat Hooker, and Elizabeth Light. Thank you all very much for your generous donation of your time. The IRS does not recognize that as we are also honored this evening to have with us the man who has helped to make all of this possible, our county executive. We're going to be recognizing him for some remarks. As we move forward with these plans, it really is a challenging job to try to balance all the different competing needs, and it becomes a very challenging job. And as one of my old professors used to say, when everybody in the room hates you, you know you must be doing a good job. But as much as that takes place, and I always take a bet with myself every day, who's going to be the first person to yell at me? Will it be a constituent? Will it be a developer? Will it be somebody who has natural resource interests? It's always a pretty good bet as to who it's going to be. But one of the things that helps make it worthwhile is to know that what you're doing is appreciated and valued by the people for whom you work. And that is particularly true with our current county executive, and I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to work for him, because he understands the difficulty of the task that we have and what we're trying to do. And he supports us, he encourages us, and he puts his money where his mouth is. He told us he wanted us to have 17 meetings. We're in number 8 of those meetings tonight. And he's shown up for the majority of those meetings himself. So he's not just telling us what to do, he's actually giving of his time and participating as well. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce our county executive, Mr. Stuart Pittman.
Yeah, I feel a little bit bad about what I've done to the planning department, because they're having to do a lot of meetings that they didn't really intend to do at the beginning of this process. But I came out here during the campaign, and I think I was standing right over here, and all of your chairs were facing this way, and we did something pretty similar to what we're doing now. We looked at the small area plan, and we talked about what people wanted for their community looking forward. And so for those who don't know, probably figured it out by now, the stuff on the wall is the old small area plan that was done 17 or 18 years ago. And the process now is the general development plan. And what we're doing now is just small area visioning, we're calling it. It's just one check-in with each one of the communities. And what we're getting, a lot of the people coming are the community leaders, which is what we want, leaders of community associations, because they have pretty specific ideas of what they want and don't want in their communities, because they've been listening for years. And then we have the Citizens Advisory Committee, which is one representative from each of the 16 small areas that were created back in the day. And they're going to be working over the next year to come up with a general development plan. And then the work's not over. It just gets started on another small area plan, where they'll be back, and whether it's these exact boundaries or whether there's something slightly different will be determined in the future, but to look locally again. So we did a meeting that was over a month ago now, where we invited people to spend all Saturday talking about the general development plan on a beautiful spring day. And we had about 2 weeks notice, and I didn't think very many people would show up. But we capped it at 200, and 240 came. So it was a meeting where Smart Growth America and Governor Glendening came. He was sort of one of the fathers of smart growth. And what was interesting was that it was mostly community leaders, mostly people who had a pretty good idea of what they don't want. But the first half of the meeting, the whole morning, was a presentation by these smart growth people talking about transit-oriented development and some modern ways of looking at place and community and building community by getting community benefit from the development that does happen, while at the same time preserving open space. So I felt as though that was very useful for people, and they then went into the breakout sessions, and everybody I've heard from said it was a great day. And I'm hoping that that kind of attitude and that kind of thinking will be reflected in all of the small areas and will be reflected in the general development plan. You know, some of my priorities you probably heard before. One is affordable housing. Housing that people who work in our county, if you work in our county, should be able to live in our county. Teachers, police, firefighters, the whole bit. And we're going to be introducing some bills in the coming weeks and months that are going to help us get there, I believe. And preserving open space is a big one for me. I'm a South County farmer, and the natural beauty of the county is part of what people came here for. Most people who chose to move here. A lot of people live near the water and care a lot about water quality and the environment. And so I think that we can do all of that and still do some good stuff that includes some development. And in this community, I don't know whether you're going to talk about it. I'll be interested to hear if you do. But there's been a lot of growth. There's been a lot of development. We have to catch up in terms of school capacity, public safety, and roads. No question about it. And I think as well as that, other kinds of public transportation and trails. And so we have Laurel Racetrack just down the road. And the people who I've talked to in this community see that as a possible partner in some good stuff. I know that right there on the Patuxent River, there's been talk of putting in a kayak launch. Laurel, the Jockey Club, also owns the Bowie Training Center 12 miles down and has talked about how much fun it would be to jump in a kayak and go 12 miles, and then you get out and watch the horses gallop at the training center and get a cup of coffee down there. Maybe you could do a shuttle, bring us back. But you know, the outdoor recreation is a big part of what we talk about with the general development plan. So I hope that you all push hard, fight for what you want. I mean, I know that it's not always good, I don't think, to have everybody hate you in the room when you're a politician, but maybe when you're a planning director. But it's okay to come after us and to push for what you want. So I'm going to sit and listen and hear what you guys have to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Executive. A few other folks would like to take a moment to introduce. From the Office of Transportation, Brian Ulrich. From our Office of Constituent Services, James Kitchen. Our council representative, Mr. Dave Helmecki. And then we have a number of folks from the Office of Planning and Zoning, and I can't sing their praises high enough. They're here this evening in addition to their regular duties, and they're helping to make all of these public meetings possible. Cindy Carrier, Mark Wildonger, Don Ziegler, Lori Rhodes. Did I miss anyone? Thank you all very much. So there's a number of different components to these meetings. We have followed the same format in all of them, and we will be continuing to do so. You've already participated in several of these things. I know a couple of people came in late and did not perhaps have an opportunity to finish. After we've completed the part of this meeting that we're about to do right now, there will be opportunity to you to finish. There will also be opportunities for you to ask questions of staff, etc. But I'm going to be introducing Elizabeth Rossborg to facilitate a discussion with you all where we actually have an opportunity to take your temperature and get some answers to some important questions that help us as we continue this planning process. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Take it away, Elizabeth.
Good evening. Thank you. As Mr. Hager said, my name is Elizabeth Rosberg, and I'm the volunteer chairman of the Citizen Advisory Committee. And we appreciate you all being here this evening. Thank you very much, because this is the reason why we're here. And we're so glad that you've taken the time to come out. A couple things. This is not your only opportunity. First, I want to let you know that there will be more opportunity after this. When we get a draft plan, we will come back out and you will have an opportunity to comment on that draft plan, number one. Number two, for those people who weren't able to come tonight, everything is online. So you can do everything online at www.aacounty.org. And you go to the top, it'll say departments, go under planning and zoning. The first tab is Plan 2040, and everything is available online. You can also email me at plan2040@aacounty.org, and we will answer everybody's questions, comments, concerns, and one thing or another. So please pass that on. Not everybody was able to be here this evening, so we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to participate and be part of the process. And that's the reason why we're here tonight, right? We want to be part of the process. So let me start off with the questions here. And my first question is, why did you choose to live in Maryland City? What brought you here and kept you here? Or adjoining communities?
Well, I live in Russett, which is part of Maryland City, and our logo in Russett is where nature is part of the plan. We have lots of hike and bike trails, and our community appreciates having the hike and bike trails, but we also are part of the greater Maryland City community and engage with the local schools and the community businesses as well.
Perfect, thank you. Who else has something to comment on? Why did you choose to live here? What brought you to the area? Yes, sir.
The proximity of Russett to the Baltimore-Washington corridor. It's like 20 miles north to Baltimore, 20 miles south to Washington. So both of those cities have allure to us. And also the proximity to Laurel City, too, in Prince George's County. Yep.
One of the things that I think also appealed to us is at the time this community was being built with a plan. We liked the environment of having a planned community. We liked the promises made by many people who were not necessarily kept regarding development in the area. And of course, I speak bluntly because I worked on this a long time and so did other people in this room. We were promised better schools. So those were at the time very attractive to us.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm also a resident of Russett, and I've been in Russett about 13 years now, and I can echo a lot of what previous people have stated. I love the community, I love the green space and the hiking and the family community, and I was also attracted to the proximity to Washington, D.C., as well as the proximity to retail, and everything seemed to be right in your immediate community. I don't know that that's so much the case anymore, and although I love Russett, I cannot say that the community surrounding Russett has grown and improved over the last 13 years I've been here. We can obviously talk about that in a little bit more detail, but the things that attracted me to this area are not necessarily still the case.
Thank you. And we will expand upon that. So, anybody else have anything else to add about why you chose to live here? Okay, well then we get to what we started on, which is a good segue, is what has changed in the last 15 years. You said that a lot of the community surrounding the area has changed. Obviously there's been a little bit more traffic, a little bit more development. Okay, I will start with, then you can finish.
I want to start with my laundry list. I think we mentioned the retail. Many of the retail stores, especially in the corridor shopping center, have left and gone to other counties, crossed the line.
Why do you think that is? We talked about that, and we need to know a little bit more. Why do you think that they have chosen to go?
So I don't know, and I'll pass this along. I don't know what incentives were offered to those retailers from the other counties to make it more attractive. I don't know if they saw a reduction in, foot traffic coming into their areas. Is the area not attractive enough that they were getting the kind of revenue that they were seeing before, right? I don't know what the answer is to that. I just know that I haven't seen an aggressive attempt to keep those retailers here. We had Weiss recently closed down. It looked like another retailer was going to go in there. I don't know if they ran out of money or did they change their mind. Now it's boarded up. Quite honestly, that shopping center is embarrassing, right? We have 1 or 2 major stores there. And luckily, Corridor Wine, or Total Wine, I think it's called, decided to stay, because I wouldn't have been surprised if they also left the county. But I'd be interested to hear what other people have to say about that. We had, what was the name of that bar? Starting Gate. This community fought and fought to have that thing closed down. And Anne Arundel County Liquor Board approved another license after we finally got rid of them because, Royal Farms moved in? We're ecstatic that they're moving in, right? Starting Gate attracts prostitution and drugs and all kinds of things, and yet Anne Arundel County gave them another license and they moved right across the street. So we can't even get away from what we need to get away for this area to grow. But enough for me. Anybody else?
When we moved here, there have always been, for example, motels near us. Frankly, when you move into an area, you don't necessarily look at an area plan, especially if you're dealing with developers and you like the immediate community. Weiss definitely left because they wanted to close that store for profit. But if you take a look at the landlord over there, we don't have a good landlord to that mall. That is a problem. We don't have a conduit, where we can really talk to them and say, hey, why aren't you doing this, this, and this? That's not happening. It's as if we're not really part of a chamber. And we really have to, I'm just going to be blunt. I mean, now some of us have gotten back on the board because we know we have to continue to fight for that to improve. But this lady is totally correct in what she's saying. And crime has gone up over there. But part of the reason why crime has gone up over there is we have these motels, unfortunately, that have been used really as housing for people who are deprived. That is not the way people who are deprived should have to live. We have children getting onto buses. All of this is a terrible visual. As a community, we have fought to try to improve that. I know David is probably sick and tired of hearing from some of us, including me. But these businesses need to be held to a higher standard. If you're a motel, that's what you are. You're not supposed to be doing sex trading and these kinds of things. And people hear about this. Then you know yourself if it's the broken window theory, isn't it? One window's broken, so let's break another one. Nobody cares. It's that fight that's been having to go on. So I would agree very much with what you said. I don't know if anybody wants to add.
Can I just make one little comment and then I'll get you started? And I appreciate all this, and we are all taking notes, as you can see, and the things are being done. And so we will continue this discussion beyond tonight, obviously. Some of it relates to the general development plan, some of it doesn't. And so we may not be able to solve all your problems with the GDP, but obviously the powers that be are listening to everybody this evening. Yes, sir.
I wanted to get back to the question of empty storefronts and the like. It seems to me, just based on observation, that there is, relative to the market demand, there is too much new development of new shopping centers and the like which attract the stores and leave others behind. And if we could figure out a way to focus on revitalizing existing developments rather than approving new developments, it's a matter of where you want to steer the commercial energy so that good supply meets existing demand, and you don't end up with facilities like the Weiss store that can't seem to attract a tenant, and there are any number of other examples of this as you go around the larger area. So I would really like to focus on finding ways to revitalize existing developments rather than to approve new developments in undeveloped areas.
And the county agrees with you. And they have a division of redevelopment that has been created. Lynn Miller is in charge of that, and so she is looking at all the revitalization throughout the county and doing that. It's also, the permit process is a lot easier to build new than it is to revitalize. So we need to go back and we need to look at tax incentives and zoning and multi-use and everything else. And so that is definitely an issue that I know that the county is looking at. So, yes, ma'am.
I just had a question. Are the officials of Anne Arundel County aware of the fact that Howard County just broke ground on revitalizing the Route 1 corridor on the other side of Laurel Park? So from what I've read, right, that's going to be mixed use with housing and restaurants and the like, which if they're ahead of the game, right? So again, we're going to be left out of this, and there's going to be probably more movement of other folks to the Howard County side or Prince George's because they have the Laurel Mall, Laurel Town Center. But it just seems like everyone is ahead of us. Everyone's ahead of us. So I don't know what's going to be left, and I don't know how aggressive we're being about catching up, right? Because I see a dire need. We're at a major corridor of 295. You can't get a better location, right? So at this point, I feel like this area is the stepchild of the county because it shouldn't take a room of residents to tell you this, that you have missed a critical area of your county where you could have revitalized and built. You have the Russett community that is beautiful, right? You have Fort Meade, you have NSA, you have a captured audience. There is no way not to make money here if you invest in this area.
Yes, sir.
It is going to be harder to develop new land, especially when our new forest conservation bill passes. So it's going to drive the development into areas that need to be redeveloped because it's going to be a lot cheaper for the developers. But I hope that some of the problem that we're describing is going to be solved by some of the growth at Laurel Racetrack, that the investment there, making it a super track. They have some land that I know on this side that they want to do some development. And I agree with you. I don't understand why everybody's not coming to this place, because transit-wise and transportation, it's great. They're going to open, I believe they're going to open the train station right there between the racetrack and the Howard County development. So there should be a lot of reasons for businesses to want to be here. And I would guess that even if we did nothing with what Laurel's doing, that corridor would be, businesses would come in and want to be there. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Also, if I could just add to the county executive's comments, one of the good things that the county executive did, among many things, he appointed a new director of economic development, former Councilman Jerry Walker. And I know Jerry's said this to me, that the county executive has said, you need to focus on the Odenton, Laurel area. We get a ton of calls from there. We need to really focus on what's going there. With someone who's from this area more so, like Jerry Walker, he understands this area very well, and I think we're going to see a renewed interest in that. Also adding to that, that helps that we try to push as well, is that this is an enterprise zone. So we do have incentives for businesses to go in there. And so we are trying to bring them in. And I think with Jerry Walker and his team, we're going to see a renewed effort to try to do that. The last administration tried but failed.
I will get to you, sir. I just want to clarify two things because I did misspeak. Is that it is not different. The permit process for revitalization and for building new is not different. So I wanted to clarify that. And Lynn Miller is a one-person shop, but she is a new one-person shop, and so she is going to be terrific in making that revitalization happen. Sir.
Yeah, so I just want to, I think a lot of the comments have been spot on, but I think what you're also hearing, which is very important, that what's important for commercial development in this area is really addressing the issue with these hotels. And you can't have a vibrant commercial district if this is a problem that's been 20 years in the making. And everyone, all of my neighbors know, I beat up Steve's shoes, something terrible over the issue of these hotels. And people often joke about it, but it is a very serious problem. And we have to be very deliberate about addressing what's happening at the Garden Inn, what's happening at the Red Crown Inn. Spent a lot of time with James Kitchen today, just saying that maintaining the status quo is just unacceptable at this point. Something just has to be done. And we had that conversation with the Shu administration, Laura Newman, oh my goodness, the god-awful Leopold. I guess we knew that wasn't going anywhere, but the bottom line is that that's like high on the priority list for all kinds of reasons. And we've sat down, we've had meetings about it, but now is the time to really get very serious and deliberate about doing something more concrete as opposed to keep talking about the issue. We know what the issues are. I've been in contact with Andrew and have been very clear about those concerns. So we're talking about Laurel Park being an engine for development on this side of town. I don't know if that happens without also addressing the issues of the hotels. And I think it's a very kind of comprehensive argument that includes both, not either.
Well, thank you, sir. We do appreciate that. And there is some additional information on that, so I will let Dave tell
Okay.
you.
Thank you. And you're right, Devin. That is as everyone agrees, we have problems up at that motel. You'll remember back in 2016, Councilman Pruski really worked terribly hard to get a public nuisance bill through the county council. He got the 4 votes about serious crimes. We're talking about prostitution, sex trafficking, drug dealing, serious crimes that are going on to really put pressure on these motels. Unfortunately, the county executive, for some unknown reason, decided to veto that bill. Who knows why, but I will tell you right now, and I guess it's no surprise to the county executive, I guess we're going to lobby him a little bit right here. That bill will be reintroduced. The councilman is going to reintroduce that public nuisance bill. We expect it to pass the county council, and we are very hopeful that that the county executive will sign this and give the Western District Police Department some new tools to work to make this community better in that sense, because they can't do it alone. As we all know, the Western District Police Station is almost like a private security force for them. They spend so much time up there. They're not in our neighborhoods where I know they would rather be. I've talked to everyone from Chief Altamari down. They get drawn up here. They have to go up there. The other thing with these motels is they're playing games with our inspectors. Someone calls, there's a broken window or a broken screen. Well, they'll do the inspection, they'll fix that. But, they can't keep coming back day after day after day and make that once again their own private business to do that. And so they play this little cat and mouse with our inspectors as well. And they're onto it, and they have to walk a fine line because they don't also want to be charged with harassing these people, surprisingly enough. So these are some of the things, but we're going to see these tools hopefully come back under the Shoe administration and the new county council, under the Pittman administration. The Pittman administration, what did it, what he failed.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. Now, as I said, a lot of that will be addressed. It's not necessarily part of the GDP. So we'll move on to the next question as soon as John goes down, which is what we have been talking about, what needs improvement.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Mark Thompson. I work with Astronomic Group, and we own Laurel Park, and we're excited to be, we've set up a real estate group very recently within the last year, and we're excited about the opportunity at Laurel Park. So since that is under what needs improvement, we've been working with the county and the county executive and the Department of Planning and Zoning, Office of Planning and Zoning, really excited about some of the opportunities that we have and look forward to meeting with many of you in the community. We're starting to get out there and just kind of getting our wheels under us. But really excited about the opportunities because we do believe we can play a big role in the community revitalization and have a big impact. So. I will say, we met with Councilman Pruski, and we batted that around a little bit. Unfortunately, we have a lot of demands on our capital right now, and we were thinking about potentially, but it just wouldn't work. But for jockeys, we have a lot of housing needs in that area. But anyways, but those are the types of activities. I know we're in the impact. Dave just sent me this information. Laurel Racetrack Impact Fund, and we're excited about that and being able to do a little bit of, to help the community from that range. But I'm around, happy to give you my card, happy to talk to you about the plans and what we're thinking about and move with that. And we look forward to working on the plan.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and thank you for speaking up. And obviously, we appreciate everybody having a seat at the table and being part of the plan from the very beginning, because I used to say that we would hear from people when the bulldozer showed up. And I can tell you right now, you need to call when those little pink pieces of tape go on the trees and they start surveying. That's when you need to be participative, be part of the process. Because by the time the bulldozers get there, they've already have their permit. So, okay, what else needs to be changed? Or what else do you want to keep? What else do you want to keep? What do you like that you want to improve upon? Well, you were talking about commuting. You were talking about commuting and being so close to everything. So are you interested in having more mass transportation? Would that be an improvement to the area? Are your park and rides safe? Are your trails, do you want to improve your trail system for the bikes? And there's a yes. Speak up.
I like to bike and to hike a lot, and we were just down at your new development, and it would be great to see bike paths from Russett, from Maryland City, down to the race course, into the new development, continuing into Laurel to their bike path along the river. It doesn't seem like it would take a whole lot, but it needs some planning to do that.
I'd like to also point out that we've got, when you talk about Odenton, Savage, this new station at the racetrack, and the existing MARC station in Laurel, there's 4 MARC stations within a fairly reasonable distance of here. And if we could develop a network of bicycle paths, it would allow commuters to ride to those stations, get on the MARC trains, and go either to Baltimore or Washington as part of their commute without even getting on the road in the first place. Right now, trying to commute by bicycle even to NSA Fort Meade is just not safe at this point. But it would not take much in terms of, you know, the amount of asphalt, and obviously there's some rights of way that are involved. I don't want to undersell the challenge, but in the grand scheme of things, connecting few existing trails that we have to major transit facilities and employment centers like the National Business Park and Fort Meade would really take a lot of traffic off the road and reduce the need for further road capacity expansion. And I think that that's the kind of thing where a small investment would pay considerable benefits.
And that transfers or is a good transition into the Transportational Functional Master Plan, which is currently available to view and comment on. It's online at www.aacounty.org. Again, if you go under transportation, it's the very first tab, and we would love to have everybody comment and put that in writing. Comments are due by June 15th, so we appreciate that. There's a lot of information about such things on the plan and what they're trying to do. And one thing otherwise you all need to remember, and I'm sure you know this, is that anything that is numbered is a state highway and controlled by state funds and controlled by state highway administration. So not only do you need to talk to your county, but you also need to talk to your legislative representatives to make sure we get a bigger piece of that, or greater piece of that pot, right? Get more money, because we have a backlog on infrastructure. And I know the county exec has already addressed that and plans to address it further, but we realize that we are behind and we need to plan before we build.
I'm sorry, what's the name of it?
It's called Move Arundel, Brian, where am I right? Move Arundel, and it's the Transportational Functional Master Plan. It is one of the main plans that goes into the GDP. And it's a very important plan. It's the number one issue. Traffic is the number one thing we hear about at all these visioning sessions.
When Russett was originally built, the developer donated land for a school, and that school has never been developed. And it's something that we would like to see, not in 20 years, but built more recently or sooner than that. Our children, my child is graduating this year, and that was one of the reasons that we moved to this community. We wanted to see him in our community going to school. And, well, he's not going to see it, but maybe grandchildren or other children, as we are getting more residents and they are having children. We want to keep them here in Anne Arundel County and not move to another county.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Excuse me.
Thank you. Just to tag on to the discussions about the schools, so the Russett developer did donate land for, at the time it was predicted that it was going to be an elementary school. That was 25 years ago. Demographics have changed, so maybe it needs to be a middle school or a high school. But I do believe that our property values are severely negatively impacted by the fact that children from this area, Maryland City, Russett, go to Meade High School. And not to put that high school down, but it's not probably one of the higher rated high schools in the county. So we do need a middle school or a high school or both in West County. For years, the police, Western District Police leaders have been telling us that they are understaffed and prior administrations would not fund the proper number of police to patrol our communities. And the fire department as well. The Laurel racetrack impact fees, we had to use that to buy a new fire truck for our firehouse because prior administrations would not properly fund our fire department. And no water tower.
Okay, you do not want a water tower.
Not in our community. Not in West County, yes. Not in Russet.
Not in Russet, okay, sorry. So yes to have a water tower, but not in the Russet community. Okay, And I'm going to go back here, and then I want to hear from some other people who haven't had a chance to comment.
So it gets back to my earlier point about, again, when we're thinking about developing Laurel Racing Track, to think about addressing some of these things comprehensively. And so how do you, if we're going to invest as a state or even as a county resources, taxpayer resources in Laurel Racing Track, what's the public interest there, or what can be the public interest there other than it's a development for horse racing, the track, business, or tourism? But what about a recreation center on this side of town when we think about how we finance a mega project or comprehensive project of the racing track, a rec center that can be used for residents on this side of town? What about, the school? I mean, I think these are all the kinds of things that we have to start addressing, or at least having a conversation early about how do we do this in a more thoughtful and comprehensive way. Again, from my position, it just can't be about the racetrack on this side of town. It really has to be about addressing some of these long-standing needs related to schools and recreational resources as well. And someone mentioned the trail as an example, but I would add the rec center and school to that as well.
And what about senior centers? Okay. So we need rec centers all the way up to senior centers. Let's do it that way. It could be one and the same. It could be good mentoring, good mentorship. Definitely one and the same. So, okay. And then our last question is, what should your community look like in 20 years? I think we've heard open space, we've heard greenways, we've heard biker-hiker trails, we've heard safe commuting, park and rides when you get on the mark. We've heard good schools, better schools, local better schools.
How about public? I'm a public school teacher. Better public schools.
Okay, good.
Better retail options.
Yes.
Better retail options. And I did hear that from somebody before, that to get away from the chains and the family and the local, and the chains are great too, but you don't want to have a McDonald's on every corner.
Or a Royal Farms.
Or a Royal
They'll
Farms.
be the only thing left there from the war.
What else? What else do you want to see in your community? What about we talked about open space, water access?
Water access.
I don't know how far.
What do you mean by water access?
Being able to enjoy the water, either kayaking like we talked about before, having a kayak launch, and be able to kayak.
Well, can we get into that a little bit? But you want to talk about, can you all hear me?
But we're being taped.
Oh, okay. Well, because we're talking about in 20 years, but we already know some of these things are here, but they just need to be developed. We know, for example, that in that river there are rare fish, and people have tried to hide that over the years. There are reasons, and things that are really marvelous, but what they need are some focus and being placed higher on a priority list. And one thing that did not get mentioned when I was really listening to you, Oak Hill is a federal piece of land. And I'm always fascinated. I won't bore everybody with the story, but I know it in detail. And the fact is that is a huge piece of property that could be part of a hiker-biker trail. If we could work out something with the government, there's still a center there that is a correctional center for DC. Now, I was looking at the small area plan, and people aren't putting that as a high priority anymore, because since the new one was built, we're not hearing the same things. But the fact is, there is a huge property there that is not used as green space, not used for development, and actually has, what we used to say is a brownfield. I don't know if that's the current use, but of things that are deeply contaminated. All those things could be part of our 20-year out, connecting all of these things you're talking about, because it's right up the road. Have you ever been there? Well, you should go there. Really, not by yourself necessarily. I don't think they'd let you. No, I'm not being fresh. I don't think they would just let you on the property, but I'm sure that our county executive can take a drive around there. And people need to look at that again, because that got dropped from the conversation and, a while ago. So those are things.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So.
Yes, ma'am.
This is your representative to the CAC.
I also want to add that we have the wonderful Oxbow Preserve on the Russett property. And a nature center, very much like the Patuxent Research Refuge, would be an excellent way to educate our children on nature and why it's important to preserve it. We have a lot there that we can teach adults and children. But there isn't a facility there, and it's just a very small area that people just kind of happen to know about if they're in the community, but it could be utilized better.
Most definitely. That's a golden opportunity. So, what else do you see? What else do you want to see?
I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to say this, but it has to do with, I think we need to have some paradigm shifts in thinking about this community. And one of the things that really upset me, and many people in this room, is when the starting gate when the starting gate was sold. The Royal Farms took over, and I'll tell you, I was very happy to have a Royal Farms in the community because the starting gate was so noxious. There was prostitution that was taking place there, drug deals. The police, it was a tremendous strain on the police. Night after night, day after day, week after year, year after year, this is taking place. And it continued. And it's continued. We've been here 26 years, and it's been going on for 26 years. And my understanding is it was before that. It's never been handled. Some people have tried to address it, but it has never been handled. So we're glad to get the place sold and get a Royal Farms. Never thought I'd be happy to see a Royal Farms, but I am. I'm thrilled. Well, what we find out is that the owners who were the noxious owners of the starting gate, same people, got a facility across the street, which used to be a fast food restaurant. There are hearings about whether they should be allowed to have a permit or a license. The community showed up by the hundreds, petitions, many, many things.
Well, let me explain a little bit.
Well, let me just finish. Okay. So what I'm saying is there needs to be some thought process changes, because obviously the liquor board is not sensitive to our issues at all. They didn't care. We have Total Wines across the street, which is one of the largest retailers of spirits and beer, wine in the world, I would probably say. Do we need another liquor store in this part of the county?
No.
Is it there adequate public facility currently with existing liquor stores between, there's another one next to Jackie's, next to the cleaners. Can these two exist in harmony in this community without the starting gate and a third liquor store? Absolutely. So what are these people on the liquor board thinking? That's maybe it. I don't understand it. So there's got to be some change in thinking, and hopefully you can bring that about.
And I do want to explain just a little bit about this. And I understand the frustration, and I do think the county executive will be able to participate and be part of the process. It is not a county-controlled liquor board. It is federal. And it is state. Almost could be federal, but it is state. And so the state representatives, and they are appointed by the governor, And so they are in the process right now of revitalizing and reviewing that entire process. So you need to get involved and speak up and stay involved and collectively, because collectively you're a louder voice. And so that you know that, and I'd love to be able to solve that problem for you, but unfortunately it won't be part of the GDP. But they know.
Don't miss his point, though, which is.
But to start thinking differently, which is where I want to go back to, which is the reason why we want to look at the entire county and start thinking differently and not go with the status quo, and which is what I was alluding to before as far as traffic and different multimodal transportation and different ways to do things and mixed use. And I mean, there's a whole lots of different ways to do things. It doesn't have to be the traditional town centers. It doesn't have to be the traditional way that you may be thinking. We're trying to think forward and copy other good ideas. I'm all about copying other good ideas.
We are right here in the corner of really 4 counties effectively. And so part of the challenge that we have is the Anne Arundel County focus only goes up to the borders, more or less, unless you actually work together with your counterparts in all of the various counties right around here. How much is that part of what the Anne Arundel effort is doing? How much coordination is there? And I would encourage you, please to try to coordinate at the edges of everybody's planning so that what is done in each of the counties really fits together in a way that makes sense for the corners like us.
Exactly. So left hand knows what the right hand is doing on each side of the corners.
We all got elected at the same time, and we all are friends. So we're going to do it.
Thank you. And they are talking, as he alluded to.
Yeah, but to amplify Bob's point about paradigm shift, I mean, one example you see that is in police coverage, where we'll have Western District commanders after commanders come over and say, oh, well, it's because you're located next to Prince George's County. Now, if you think about that, the connotations of even saying that is kind of problematic on the surface, but my response has always been, well, our tax dollars are located next to Howard County. I mean, what are you really saying? It's always been, some kind of excuse about why we can't have the services we deserve in this part of the county. Russett is one of the largest census tracts in the county. You literally have about 13,000 people in this footprint. That's a small city. And it's been underserved for, I've been here about 17 years. But his point being that you have to think really differently about how you service this area. It's not so much that we're located next to Prince George's County. We're also located next to Howard County. What does that have to do with police service or fire service? We struggled for years with this issue of mutual aid, where Howard County was answering over half of our calls for service for fire. That's crazy. We send a lot of tax dollars back east, but we don't really get a whole lot of return going back west. So we know that'll change under the new administration, or we're hopeful that that'll change under the new administration. Right. But I think if there isn't any takeaway here tonight, I think Bob's point is spot on. Is there has to be a paradigm shift about this portion of the county that contributes so much in terms of tax dollars, gets so little in terms of public service, whether that's recreation, fire, or police.
Thank you. Okay. So we need to wrap this up because I'm going to lose my microphone in just a second. And the library has stayed open for us to be able to do this evening. So we're very, very grateful to them. And we will wrap it up with his final words.
I just have to. A couple things. I agree that West County, and this part of West County in particular, has not gotten the investment. It's happened in East County. I wouldn't have gotten elected if it hadn't been for you all votes. So that's not the only reason we want to invest in this part of the county, but it helps. And if you look at the budget that we just that we've introduced and the county council, I believe, will pass middle of the month. We're raising taxes, which we're going from 2.5 on the income side to 2.8. Howard, Prince George's, Baltimore, all the big 8 counties are at 3.2, so we're staying in the bottom quarter. But it's going to be a nice little boost, and a lot of that money is going to go for public safety. We're really actually going to bump the number of cops up, the number of firefighters up, and then schools, we're doing some of it with the income tax increase, but we're doing a bit of a property tax increase as well, so that we're at 90 cents right now. We used to be at $1 on our income, on our property tax back before the tax cap took effect and pushed the rate down. So we're going part way back. We're just going to 93.5 cents, so that's going to help us just on the schools. So we're going to be investing in the schools. So then the question is there enough money to do things like community centers? And we're actually doing a community center. The last administration said they made a decision, no community centers in Anne Arundel County, but we have some. We have some rec centers and places that have been built around the county. We're doing one on Reese Road up at Severn, and making an exception there. And we're looking at what's been done around the county and who should be running them if they exist, whether there should be more of them, and that's sort of a next step and a big question. So if you want some kind of a community center, now's the time to push for it. And then in terms of the racetrack, there is, I think, a bit of a misconception that the racetrack is funded with public money. They haven't come to us for any bonds or anything as a county. They do get 1% of the slots money for another 6 or 7 years for the racetrack facility renewal account. And that's what's the big fight over, Baltimore versus Laurel. And the Jockey Club's investing it at Laurel, has been investing most of that money at Laurel. And that was approved by the voters when they did the slots referendum. So that can't be changed anyway. So that's where the public money is going to the racetrack.
I think he's going to ask you for money eventually.
No, I mean, this is, but it's true. I was part of that whole thing. Yeah.
Just to clarify, though, that dollar of public money is matched by $1 of our money. So when people say we're not investing in certain other places, what I say is, well, we're making an investment decision with our Stronach money, but we're also making an investment decision with our money as taxpayers, and it's got to be a good investment.
For everybody.
For everybody.
Right. Because the last thing we need is another $30 billion giveaway to a casino. We only
Right.
deserve $30 billion giveaway.
Right.
And so,
We're watching that too. But the hope is that if you see the plans for this new super track, the racetracks are figuring out that just horse racing isn't enough, and it's got to become an entertainment destination and hopefully a place that with community access where people can hang out and have a good time.
So, don't forget, this isn't your last opportunity. Please follow up www.aacounty.org or Plan 2040 at aacounty.org, and we will see you again. We thank you for participating. Thank you for being part of the process.